Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sovelto. My name is Petri Riikallio, and I'll be your instructor today and tomorrow for this Excel Pivot Report course. Let's look through the basics first. Here's the schedule. We'll start at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning as well. We have a breakfast at 8 o'clock at the cafeteria if you come in early. We'll take lunch just before the noon, and we'll have an afternoon break a little past 2 o'clock, and we'll try to finish at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe a bit more, but not until past. If you need to leave early, if you have a train to catch, just let me know. You are, of course, free to leave anytime you need to. And there are coffee, tea, biscuits, fruits, and sodas available. And we'll take extra breaks, at least one before noon, before the lunch break, and maybe another one in the afternoon. But we'll see that later on. Here's the map. We are here in class number 9. This is where we got in. Here are stairs. Here's a reception desk. And we got here. There's a water fountain right outside the door. There's restrooms here, right behind this wall on the right-hand side. There are a row of booths. There's an emergency exit. We'll take you downstairs, the stairway down to street level. And if you continue, walk back to the reception desk and turn slightly right, you'll find the coffee machines and fridges with drinks over here. And if you want to smoke on the yard, you can smoke. It's a bit to the left of the door. You get through this door to the yard. So my name is Petri Riikallio, and I've been training Excel and other subjects since 1986. Excel was my first course back then, and I've been teaching Excel ever since. And I've also teach other Office programs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and some other Office products. But this course is about Excel pivot reports. We'll start with the very basics and then continue to more advanced topics. And I see from your pre-course questionnaire that you have been using Excel for at least some time, but I don't know who is who, so I'd like to put faces to the names, and I'd like to know what you know about pivot reports, if you have any experience with those. So could you please start? Please use the microphone. We are videotaping this.
Yeah, it's very little experience so far, so I'm just learning the basic principles to use them.
Yes, could you please say your name?
Yeah, my name is Tapani.
Tapani.
I'm working at the university and as a database manager, and I'd like to learn to use these pivot structures in order to make my colleagues better able to analyze our data in the database.
Very good. Thank you. And next one, please.
Hello, I'm Anna, and I'm working as an office assistant. And I use Excel as a daily basis, but I'm not so familiar with pivot reporting. So, anxious to learn.
Yes, we'll have that today. Thanks. Next.
Okay, hello, my name is Toni. I'm a developer and I've been using Excel about 20 years, but I have no idea what the pivot tables are.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Pia. I'm very open-minded to learn everything what you could tell me, please.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Pass the mic, please.
My name is Mauri. I've been using Excel for a while, but I don't know what the pivots are, so I'm anxious to learn about them and see how I can use them in my work.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, let's get started. I have a few slides here, not that many slides, just a couple of slides for the theory. Most of the time I'll be showing you and hopefully making you do some work with pivot tables. There you go. So, the first steps. This is a short module, about 15 minutes. Basics of pivot tables. First one, what is a pivot table? What does it look like? What can you do with pivots? And what can you, or how they are created? What are the requirements for the source data? What can you create a pivot table from? And then the actual steps how to do it. And I'll show you first what a pivot table looks like. So I have here a ready-made Excel table that has multiple rows of data. Each column has a column header. Each column has a name, and the names must be unique. Each column must have a name, and they must be unique. And each column contains information of the same type. So here are names, product names, numbers, prices, totals, and so forth. And if I want to summarize this in a single small report, I just go to the Insert tab and click on Pivot Table. And Excel will guess that I want to create a pivot table report around the cell I had selected. So I had this cell selected, so it selected the whole table from A1 to K1321. That's a good guess in this case. Where do I want to place it? On a new worksheet or an existing worksheet? I'll place the new worksheet. So just click OK. I'll get a new blank pivot table. And here are the column headers. In this case, they are called field names or fields. And that's why every field has to have a name, so I can use them in this field list, and they must have a unique name, so I know which one is which. And here are 4 boxes down here. And I'll just drag the fields to these boxes as I need to. So for the basic report, I'll just drag the customer names to the rows, for example. So I get a list of customers in this data. I'll drag the product categories to columns like this. And I'll drag the total sales to values. So I get a report of all the customers and all the product categories and the sales for each. If I change my mind, I don't want to have these customers, I just want to see the countries. I can just uncheck the customer here and drag the country to rows. So now I have the countries here and product groups over there. So this is easy to modify. And if you think about the original data, you can think that yes, those values are in here somehow. Multiple transactions for each customer and for each product categories, and I just got an automatic summary of the whole data. There are some interesting parts. One interesting thing is that there are no formulas. If I click on the result here and I look at the formula bar, there's no formula, it's just a value. So this is not calculated automatically. If you need to refresh this, you have to manually refresh. In the pivot table tools, here's Analyze. It's a refresh button. Now the table is recalculated. So there's no automatic recalculation if the source data changes. As long as source data stays the same, you don't need to refresh the pivot table report. So let's go back to the slides. Or do you have any questions so far? Does this seem reasonable, useful? Good. Let's go back to slides for a second. The requirements for the source data. It has to be a contiguous list. You cannot have any empty columns or rows in the data. each column must have a name, and the names must be unique. This I talked about already. Each column must, it says must, it's not really a must. You could place different kinds of data into one column, but to get a useful report, this actually is quite a requirement. And each row represents one collection of data. This means that you have to have all the items for each type of data in a single row. For example, if you're doing a pivot report on customer data, you have to have all the customer data on a single row. For example, if you have two addresses, you have the shipping address and a billing address, you cannot have those on separate rows. You need to put them on the same row in next columns to write. You have 16,000 columns, so there's plenty of room. That's not a problem. But sometimes you need to manual the data to get them on a single line. And if you're familiar with the Excel tables, you can use table as a source of data, and actually this is a recommended practice. But we'll look at the data tables later on in a later module in this course. So, next I hope ask you to open your computers if you have not already opened them. And if you need to sign in, if it's locked, the password is Sovelto1 with a capital S. And on your desktop, you should have a document called pivot data. If you open the pivot data file, that's the file I just used. And if you create with me a simple pivot report of the first worksheet. We have multiple worksheets here. The first one is called orders, and here is where we'll create our first pivot table. So if you click inside the table and go to the Insert tab, and in the first group, Tables group, we have a pivot table. And then you check that the table range is correct to 1321 and create a new worksheet for this pivot report and click OK. Then you have a new blank pivot report. And here are the fields. And if you want to reproduce the same I created, if you drag the countries to the rows, for example, and the total, the values, you have a useful report. How much did we sell to each country? And if you want to, you can drag the salesperson to columns. You can see who is selling to which country. So here are the salespersons, and here are the countries and other combinations. Let's see how it works. Very good. So, questions so far? No? Okay. So, let's look at a problem case. The next sheet in the workbook called source. Here I've created a few problems. And if you try to create a pivot report out of this, you'll end up with an error message. If you want, you can try it out. See the error message. It's not very helpful. Can you spot some problems with this file right away? Yes, go ahead.
Well, J column, that column that doesn't have any name.
Yes, there's missing. So I need to add there a column label or header, let's say units. Like this. Next one, go ahead.
Yes, there's a product 2 times.
Yes, the product is twice in the E and F. It's the same column. I need to change this to category, for example, category. Like this. Okay, any others? Yes, go ahead.
There are also empty rows in the data. Do they have any effect on creating the pivot table?
Well, you could create a pivot table out of this just by You won't get any more error messages. Now it's good enough. It won't cause any error message if you just create a new pivot table out of this. But be careful with the range. Now it's on the first 16 rows. And if you manually force it to include all the rows, I happen to know that it extends all the way there, and on new worksheet, and I click OK. If I now create a pivot table report like this, I will get an extra row here for the blanks. There's one row for the blanks. And you could of course, filter that out, but in a general case, it's recommended that you first clean out the data, remove any empty rows. If you have empty columns, it's an error. You cannot create a pivot table because there's no header for the column. Yes, please.
Yeah, my sales data is in different Excel sheets, so how do I create the total sum from all of these different files?
You need to get it on a single sheet somehow. There are multiple ways of doing it. You could write a macro to do it. Of course, you can do it by hand if it's only occasionally. But if it happens every week or every month, you could create a macro to combine all the data in one sheet, or you could use a new tool called Power Query. But somehow you need to get them on a single sheet in a contiguous list. Do you have any other problems with the data sources? Yes?
Well, our data is in the database, so do I need to import the data to the worksheet first?
No, you could do that, but it's not absolutely necessary. If you want to, from a data tab, get external data from other sources, from SQL server, you can import with this to the Excel sheet, or you could create a pivot tables directly out of the data from the database, as long as there are not more than 1 million rows. If you have more than 1 million rows, you need another tool called Power Pivot. But all of these are subjects of their own courses, not included in the scope of this 2-day course. Any more questions?
No.
No. Good. Okay. So, next I would like to see you create a pivot table report on your own. So, there's the last sheet on in the workbook is called the exercise, and I would like to see you create a pivot table that looks like this. So here are the countries, and here are the shippers that are shipping our products. And we want to see which shipper is shipping to which country. For instance, this shipper is shipping to Belgium only, no other countries. No, the Belgium is only supported by this one shipper. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand or ask me anytime, and I'll help you out. Very good. Did you get the same numbers as I did? You all get the same numbers? No? Because I have this report based on the units. It's not the total sales, it's a number of units shipped to each country. Is there any way to tell what this table is doing? Oh.
There's a text, a sum of quantity on the left corner.
Yes,
Is that
there.
right?
By default, Excel pivot tables show the function used in the formula. You can hide this if you want to, but by default it shows you. You can check there. So if you want the same results as I do, just drag the quantity to the totals area. But of course, if you want to calculate sales totals, it's perfectly fine. It's a good report and useful also. We look at formatting issues, number formatting, colors in a later module, but this is the basic steps of creating a pivot table report. So, no formulas, you have to refresh it manually. You have to have a source data in proper format. The table conversion will be covered in a later module. Then you just, from Insert tab, Tables, Pivot Table, check the range that you are including all the rows in your data, then just drag the fields to the proper boxes you want. If you change your mind, it's easier to change your mind. Does this look reasonable at this point? Good. Any questions? Okay. We'll take a break now and continue in 10 minutes, and we'll continue with the formatting options. Thank you.